to warm up, I want you to describe the transformation of each graph. So what that means is how is this different from just the graph of sine of x? That's what transformation means, is how did it change? So pause the video, take a second, then unpause, and we'll talk about it. All right, so this first one is, instead of going from 1 to -1, it went from 2 to -2. It changed the amplitude. For the second one, instead of being centered at 0, it's centered at 4. So it shifted it up 4 units. And then the last one is the 2 made the period shorter. So if we did the period is 2 pi divided by 2, instead of 2 pi as a period, it was just pi. All right, same deal. Let's say what transformations, now it's plural, what transformations happened to each graph. So pause the video, we'll talk about it in a sec. All right, so this first one, the 3 stretched it out. Instead of 1 to -1, it went from 3 to -3. It changed the amplitude. And the 0.5 made the period longer. So if we said period was 2 pi divided by 0.5, that gets us a period of 4 pi. The second one, the 2 made our period shorter, and the -2 shifted our graph down 2 units. And then the last one, the 4 stretched our graph by a factor of 4, and +1 shifted it up 1 unit. All right, here we have 3 transformations. So one more time, we're going to work through this. Pause the video and describe each transformation. When you're ready, unpause it. All right, so these 3 transformations. 5, stretched by a factor of 5. 2, shorter period, -2, down 2 units. For g of x, 3 stretched it by 3. 4x made our period even shorter. It's now pi over 2, and +2 up 2 units. 1/2, it made our amplitude smaller. 0.25 made our period longer, and +5 moved it up 5 units. All right, so we're going to do some graphing now. So if we want to graph 2 sine of 4x minus 3, how are we going to do that? So write that down on your paper, and we're going to identify A, B, and K right away. So A, in this case, is 2. Our amplitude is 2. B is 4, and K is -3. So to graph this, the first thing we need to do is to draw our actual graph. How do we fit all of these points on that graph? So we're going to start by finding what is the period. How long does it take this to go through one cycle? So we're going to say the period is 2 pi divided by 4, which is pi. 2 divided by 4 reduces to pi over 2. So that's really important for us. All right? So the first thing we're going to do here is we're just going to draw a line. And actually, before we do that, let's find what's our maximum and what's our minimum going to be. All right? So if we shift it down 3 units, all right? So if we shift down 1, 2, 3, that's where our new center is. So I like to draw a dashed line there. And that's where our center is because of our vertical shift. Then we have to think of the amplitude. What's our maximum going to be? What's our minimum going to be? Well, from the center, it's going to go 2 up. And it's going to go 2 down. So I like to draw some dashed lines, because that's kind of where our graph is going to be. It's going to be in this region. That's going to be our max. That's going to be our middle. That's going to be our minimum. Now we have to label the x. And I think, personally, I think this is the hardest thing, is we're always starting at 0. And then our period is pi over 2. So we know that. Now we got to think what goes in between. Well, we always want that halfway point. That's how I do it, is I started at that halfway point. So what's between 0 and pi over 2? So the way I do that is I do pi over 2 times 1/2 gets us pi over 4. So that's our halfway. What's between pi over 4 and 0? Well, we can multiply this by 1/2 and get pi over 8. And then I like to do the same counting thing I did with the unit circle, where it's 1 pi over 8, 2 pi over 8, and we're going to label this 3 pi over 8. And we can reflect that into negatives, which is a nice shortcut. So negative pi over 2, negative pi over 4, negative 3 pi over 8, and negative pi over 8. So if you can get to this step, the rest of it becomes easy, because there's only one thing, I guess two. We haven't quite done the second part really yet, but one thing you have to remember. Sine, does that start at 0 or start at 1? Correct. Sine starts at 0, so that means we're not, in this case it's not 0, it's the middle. And then sine goes up to 1, down to the middle, down to the bottom, back to the middle. And we can copy that pattern going backwards, so we're getting this wave right here. And that's your graph of sine. Not too bad. The hardest thing for you is probably going to be how to get these spaces in between to find that period. So just be really careful and diligent when you're doing that. And it's okay to show this work like I did if you want to do that. So we're going to get into graphing. All right, so now that we've done one together, we're going to break this one down. So it's going to be a lot of pausing and restarting. So write that equation on your paper. Now I want you to first do A, B, and K. Find those units. All right, so pause the video, do that really quick, and unpause when you're ready. All right, now that we have those, we want to find what is the period. So again, pause the video, try to find the period, and check with me when you're ready. All right, so I got 4 pi. Check if that's what you got. If not, find a mistake and fix it. And then we're going to start graphing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to draw a general line. Now I want you to take a second and I want you to draw the center line, the max, and the min for our graph. So pause that video and try to draw those dashed lines we drew before. All right, so here's what I got. I had 3 as the max, 1 as the minimum, and -1. I'm sorry, 1 as the middle, and -1 as the minimum. All right, we're going to start, so we'll all just start 0, and then we know the period. We'll mark it right about here, so it's even on both sides. We know the period is 4 pi. So I want you to find those other 4 major points. See if you can find the x value, the x coordinates of those points. And then also copy them down going backwards. So copy those same ones down going backwards. All right, so this is actually the easiest one to do, is that it's just 0, 1 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. All right, so the big thing here is with cosine. Where do we start our graph? I heard George say it. George, you're absolutely right. Our cosine starts at our maximum. So pause the video and try to see if you can graph this from where we have it. Because once you're here, you can just bring it home, take it home, and finish it. So here's my graph. Make sure we have arrows showing it's going to be just a wave. One big mistake kids make here, and I want you just to think about it and maybe catch yourself later or catch yourself right now, is they want to put the minimum on this x-axis. We don't do that. So you put the minimum at the bottom, and then you're just going top, middle, bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom, middle, top, middle, and it's making that wave. All right, make sure you try to draw a little bit of a curve. It shouldn't just be jagged. So to clean today up, I almost keep touching the next arrow on the smartboard or on my whiteboard like it's going to work. To keep it up, we have 2 homework assignments I want you to do, take a picture of, and upload to our Google Classroom. So the first one is 5 sine of 2x plus 1, and the second one is cosine of x divided by 2 minus 3. So 2 graphs for you to try and upload a picture of.